Welcome viewers, I'm Vivid Veritas, and I'm probably not the first person who's told you that Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4 are coming out on June the 5th, when the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out, and oh my god, this is a big deal. We see a lot of new things in this trailer, and I'm not necessarily going to spend all of the time unpacking these because I think that's the job for other people, but boy, is there a bit to talk about. The first thing I want to talk about is the fact that this is coming out, as mentioned, on June 5th. For those who have been following me for a while, that's around the anniversary of my first video, and is also around my birthday, so I am going to have a very busy week, which is going to be exciting. But what does that mean for this channel itself? Well, I'm currently working on part 1 of my fate theory, my big theory that is going to kind of define the way that I talk about Deltarune. I was wondering whether or not to upload part 2 before chapters 3 and 4 come out, but now I am certain that I am not going to upload them before because I don't think I'll have the time anyway. Although part 2 won't be the first theory back, probably, from me after chapters 3 and 4, it's going to have a lot of information about that, and will also include anything that relates back to part 1 that has come up in those chapters. So, what do we actually know about chapters 3 and 4 from this? Well, as I said earlier, I'm not going to do a, top 10 things you missed or anything like that, but I do want to highlight some things that I think are particularly interesting. The first thing that jumps out to me actually was at the very start, where Deltarune was described as Undertale's parallel story. Now, there's been a lot of dispute about how connected this is to Undertale, especially when talking about characters like Gasta and Sans and Papyrus and Kara, and a lot of people talk about the original kind of thing that Toby said about the fact that the monsters were just kind of put in there from the original idea. Now, I don't know if this is Undertale's parallel story in the way that it acts as a answer or a conversation to it, which it obviously already is, and we've kind of not established that, but we have that idea already within the kind of, the zeitgeist of Deltarune communication, as it were. Or if this means something more literal. If this means that this is happening in a, parallel timeline or parallel dimension, that opens up some pretty big implications. I also think this, regardless of which way this is talking about, confirms everything that we thought about Gasta and his connections. Absolutely, we are Gastering it up. We are smoking the Gasta pack that makes us do the chapters 3 and 4 stare. Again, I am not the type of theorist to really go hard on a pretty small amount of evidence. I know some people already have existing theories about alternate timelines and dimensions and stuff like that. With this, I think they'll have a bit of fun with this, and I think that's great. In terms of actual gameplay, we do see the outfits that were teased a while ago in one of the newsletters, and they're fighting an enemy that was teased, again, in one of the newsletters. Seems like there's some kind of aiming minigame. We've had this kind of thing in Deltarune before, not a massive surprise, but it gives us a bit of an idea of what the Chapter 3 combat might be like. Toby's mentioned a couple of times that there are some very unique and specific mechanics. This obviously seems to be one of them. I'm excited to see whatever this really is. I think it could be really interesting. Something that's a bit more interesting though is the section that we see after, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you all, I don't really know what's happening here. It kind of feels like this is a Joy-Con specific thing, at least with the way that the UI works. I'm sure that there would be ways of adapting it to, all the other consoles, but also maybe this is a Switch 2 exclusive. There have certainly been exclusives to consoles, especially the Switch, in the past, so maybe this is a little minigame or a little side boss or something like that, though I think it's more likely that it'll be in everything, but even then, I still can't really tell what's happening. I think it's probably a type of minigame, but there is a live system that is based on dogs, and you have to, it seems, protect yourself in some kind of rhythm game? It's unclear, but whatever it is, it certainly seems unique and nothing that I haven't come to expect from Toby already. Speaking of seemingly rhythm games, we have something similar. We have what appears to be a kind of Guitar Hero-esque situation, but all 3 of the members of the Fun Gang have a different instrument that they're using. It also does say something behind it. It looks like it's probably WGHNELIVE, so it's something live. It's a little bit unclear to me what it is. Probably ends with an S as well, though I'm sure lots of people will be able to figure this out. It's not my specialty. I'm doing this about 2 minutes after the direct finished because Anyway, this is, again, maybe a side mode, but I think it would be more fun if it was maybe not a boss battle, but part of the main game. Mostly just because I really like rhythm games and I like stuff like Guitar Hero and Rock Band. So I think this could be really interesting. I'm saying really interesting a lot because I am really interested. I want to give a specific shout out to Chris's outfit in this area because it looks swag and I love it. Now that's most of the new gameplay that we see from chapters 3 and 4, apart from a really interesting bit where it kind of looks like reality itself is collapsing and Susie has brown hair. I don't know the implications of that, but we do see it crop up a little bit later, and I'll get to that. We all know that Chris is very capable of being thrown, and Susie is very capable of throwing people, so this isn't completely out of the ordinary, but clearly something is going wrong here. I expect this would be either at the very start of chapter 4 or at the end, though it is difficult to say what. I personally don't recognize any of these shapes or patterns or textures, whatever it may be. These are definitely new, but I think if anything, I might be related to the secret boss of chapter 4. We are almost sure that it is chapter 4 because, again, we see it a bit later. I'll get to that, but I think there is definitely the sense that something is wrong here in a way that kind of transcends the normal adventure of Deltarune, which I think will definitely be brought up. We do get some kind of headliners for chapters 3 and 4. Unfortunately, we don't learn much about chapter 3. It's just the smiling TV again. A lot of different people have a lot of different names for this. I'm not going to try here. It is my friendly TV. It is really difficult to get anything new from this, but though it is cool to see, I guess. I believe that this implies that it is within the game itself. All of this seems to be gameplay footage apart from the very start. So that's cool, I guess, if there is a kind of animated cutscene, but I don't think we need to necessarily expect this to come up in the Deltarune game itself. And for chapter 4, we do see Susie and Chris kind of looking a bit more grayed out than usual. On this angle, it does seem a bit more likely that Susie has some kind of filter over her, because not only is her hair brown rather than the kind of darker color it normally is, but also her skin and her pants are a bit more washed out and a bit more kind of reddy orangey browny rather than the kind of purple hue that she's known for. They do seem to be getting chased by some kind of horde of terrifying black orbs, which, as we all know, are one of the greatest dangers that any gamer has to watch out for. But I think the most important thing here is that the things that they are running on, which is likely in relatively the same sequence as the first bit of this that we saw, have the Deltarune itself on it. The Deltarune has come up a couple of times in Undertale and Deltarune, and I would imagine, considering this game is the one that's called Deltarune, it's probably going to be a bit more important. I think it's almost certain that this is somehow connected to either a secret boss or the Roaring or the Angel. I think the Angel is the most likely, but of course we still don't know that much about it. But I think that definitely does shine a light onto what we could expect from Chapter 4, because at this point we still know very little. But knowing that there is this kind of sequence here, some kind of high-intensity chase sequence, kind of like at the start of Chapter 1, and with Undyne and Undertale, I think really is important for things to come. Something I will also comment on about this, again, there isn't much to overanalyze here, so I will overanalyze what is here, is that they do seem to be running towards something based on their posture. Chris has their sword out. They are not just kind of running away as fast as they can. They seem to be approaching some kind of threat, I would imagine. Also, something that's worth mentioning is that Ralsei isn't here. We don't see any other characters really in here, at least ones that we haven't already met in previous chapters, and we don't even have any idea of who might be accompanying us in Chapter 3 and 4's Dark World apart from evidently Ralsei, which I mean, I don't think anyone was necessarily predicting that he wouldn't be here, but, you know, it's still important to mention, I think. But that is about all that we have for Chapter 3 and 4 itself. And we finish knowing that this is going to come out again on Nintendo Switch 2 launch day, which is going to be June 5th. I am very glad because I actually have a long weekend, which means I get a day off work. So on my, you know, my real job that isn't Deltarune theorizing. I wish this was my main job, but this is very exciting. Not to mention all the other stuff in this trailer. I do often talk about other games here, but this is a Deltarune video. I'm not going to go over it too much. In fact, I'm not going to go over it at all. That's the end. Thank you very much for watching this very ramshackle, unscripted video that I'm kind of just putting together out of sheer excitement. But Deltarune is not tomorrow. It is in about 64 days. Dear God. I am very lucky to be able to be experiencing this with all of you and the excellent community, and I'm very, very interested to see what happens in the future. For the first time, we have a Deltarune release date, and I am going to be waiting and waiting and waiting. And I hope that you'll all wait with me as well. A massive thank you to my patrons Michael Bates, Meggie, Zalgo, Tybee Fitzhugh, Visible, Carla D and Nigel Robinson for the excellent support that you provide. I'm sure you'll all be watching with bated breath as to what happens with Deltarune chapters 3 and 4, but until next time, I've been Vivet Veritas, and I'll see you again soon. Very soon.